You have a very, very interesting story. You have spent the past 47 years with the love of your life, who so happens to have co-founded two of the biggest bands of our history, Santana and Journey. Now, you have also raised two amazing children who led you to your quote-unquote own journey of becoming a children's author. Now, myself, as well as everyone else, is very excited to hear your story on how you got to where you are today while being sandwiched between kids and a very iconic rock and roll husband. Lori Raleigh, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Kiki. I appreciate the invite. I'm happy to be here.
Lori, you have lived in Texas for a very long time with Greg. Now, is this where you came from, or were you raised somewhere else? Tell us a little bit about your background.
I was raised in Dallas. Greg was raised in San Francisco. We're 10 years apart. And I didn't meet him until I was about 20 years old. I grew up listening to rock music, so I knew who he was. And anyway, our paths crossed later, and we married eventually.
Now, your paths crossed. I read that you met in an airport. Like, how does that happen? Airports are crowded places. So, there's you and then there's Greg Raleigh. So how did you two end up, in the path that you did?
I was a flight attendant for an airline called Braniff Airways, and I had a layover in the Denver airport, and it was nice and quiet. I was enjoying a book that I was reading, and all of a sudden there was all of this noise and chaos in the gate across from me, which immediately got my attention, and it was the band Journey, and they had not made it to the status they are, of course, but they had just put out their first solo called Lights. And so anyway, a couple of the band members came over to me. I was there was no one else there but me and them. And I asked who they were, and they introduced themselves, and they asked me where I was from. And they said, well, we're on tour. You should come to our show in Dallas in a couple of weeks since you live there. And they gave me some tickets and backstage passes, and I went, and it goes from there. That's how we met.
Come on.
Yeah.
That is the best. So literally, it's just, if that is not more meant to be, I'm really not sure.
Absolutely. It was perfect timing.
But now, how did you connect with Greg? Because there were other guys in the band too. So how did you and Greg,
it's funny. So I went to the show, and I actually started dating Ainsley Dunbar, who was the first drummer.
Stop it.
And we dated for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months, something like that. And it kind of fizzled. It didn't really work out. Great guy, but it just wasn't meant to be. And so I knew all the other guys. Now, being a flight attendant, I could go anywhere for $7.
Oh, my
so
gosh.
I was able to go and see as many shows as I could on my days off. And so I got to know the band during those 4 months. Mm-hmm. And then Ainsley wasn't with the band anymore. A year goes by. I had no intent on going to the show when they came back through Fort Worth. And all of a sudden, when they were there that day, I heard them advertised on the radio, and I just said, oh my gosh, I really miss these guys. They were so kind. Greg was always such a sweetheart. And he seemed to always care about people, and so he really stuck out to me, And I liked him a lot, and I liked them all, actually, every single one of them. Mm-hmm. And so that afternoon, I called Pat Morrow's room at the hotel where I knew they would be going. It was sold out. He didn't answer. He didn't pick up. And it's crazy, but I asked if they would ring Greg Raleigh's room, and they did, and he picked up on the first ring, and I said, "Hey, Greg, this is Lori. Do you remember me?" And of course I do. How are you? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, "I'd love to come to the show. It's sold out. Is there any way at all? I really don't want to impose, but I'm just wondering." And he said, "Of course. I'll leave tickets for you." And so I went to the show with my roommate, and we had the best time ever. It was a great show. The guys just rolled out the red carpet for us, it felt like.
Wow.
And then afterwards, we all went to play pool and just had a blast.
So would you consider that to be the best Journey show you were ever at? Because I'm guessing
Probably, yes.
And I'm guessing
yes.
that's where it all started for your relationship with your now husband.
Yes. And there's much more to this story, but Greg is writing a biography.
Oh my God! Well, he should.
Yeah, and I'm going to have a couple of pages in there, so there'll be a lot more to reveal.
Nice. That's awesome. So how much longer were you a flight attendant though after you connected?
So Greg asked me. So I did the same thing. I continued to work, but I would go and see him. And then the tour ended, and he invited me to come to his home that he was building in Northern California in the Bay Area. And so I did, and he sat me down, and he said, "I have something to ask you." And he said, "I'd like you to quit your job and move in with me." And he said, "The reason why is because I'll never get to know you if you continue to fly and I continue to tour. It's going to be almost impossible." And I said, "Done."
Yeah.
So I quit 2 days later. I gave my resignation and I packed one bag. I left everything behind and moved in with him, and that was 43 years ago.
Dang. Imagine that. You know what?
I know.
Done. I quit. I'm going with you. You made the right choice, clearly.
I did. And there were, my family was like, "Are you sure? Lori, come on, what are you doing? Think about this, And I said, "I already have." Well, it's just no brainer.
I mean, your heart had to be pulling you in that direction to say, this is totally the right thing for me to do.
Absolutely. I had never fallen for anybody like I felt for Greg. And it was just, we were friends. We laughed a lot. We just were inseparable. We didn't want to be apart. We had a lot in common. And I adored him, and I just knew that this was the guy for me for the rest of my life.
You literally just gave me chills when you said that. That is so sweet. And it's true, when you know, you know. But I mean, Greg at that point, he had already performed at Woodstock with Santana. He had performed alongside some of the greatest acts in our life. We'll never see these people again. Janis Joplin, the Stones, so many others. So what was it like, though, Lori? You're a flight attendant, and then you transition into a completely different world. What was that like for you? Was it ever hard, or was it just seamless for you?
It was fantastic. It was fantasy. It was like another world. It was unbelievably glamorous, and just I had never experienced that type of glamour in my life. It was, he wooed me to death. So when he's 10 years older than me, so when I was 11 and Greg was in Woodstock,
crazy.
I told my parents I was going to go to Woodstock. And they said, "Well, you're not."
Good thinking on your parents' part.
Yeah. And, oh man, it just killed me. But, when I met him, I had to pinch myself every day. For years, I pinched myself. I'm still pinching myself. And just marveling at his fabulous career. It's just been something that not a lot of people get to experience or do. You know, he's had quite a beautiful career, and I'm very proud to have been by his side for the majority of it. Yeah.
Now, I do have to ask, so during that point, right in the beginning when you moved in with Greg, during Steve, I have to ask about a Steve Perry question. I just have to, because it's within my soul. So during Steve Perry's acceptance speech at the 2017 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame award ceremony, which had to be such an honorable moment for you and Greg,
Sure.
Steve made a comment that he lived with Greg to write songs. Did he really?
He did. Yes. And in fact, when he moved in with us, he lived with us. We lived. Steve was looking for a house to buy in Marin County, and so he had stayed with Greg when Greg was living in his other house, and he would come and stay at our house as well. But when I first met Greg, he was building a home, but he lived in another home. And Steve lived there with him.
That had to be, I mean, just thinking back on that now, Lori, because Steve is really kind of an enigma to all of us.
Yes.
You know, they call him the voice, and, you know, there will never be a voice like his forever and ever. So just thinking back on those moments that you lived through that, what was an awesome memory of living with Steve Perry?
I don't think I realized how incredible that was, to be living with Steve being such a big deal, you know? I mean, he's still a big deal. And he was the kindest person. He was so kind. And we laughed a lot. We had a lot of fun. I don't think I really was in such awe. But as time went on, and going to the concerts and watching the crowds just oogle over them, I guess it was almost like the Beatles. That's how the crowd received Journey in those early days, and they still do.
Yeah.
I guess I never really thought about that as much. I saw him as a friend too.
Right.
Yeah. More of a good time, I guess.
Gosh, Lori, holy moly. I can't wait to read Greg's book now. Like, let's go. Can we finish it already? Because I'm sure there's going to be some great stuff in there.
Well, he's writing it with a very famous author of rock and metal named Mick Wall. I don't know if you know who he is. He's an English journalist, and he's just legendary. He's written so many books on iconic bands such as Zeppelin, Metallica, Foo Fighters, Prince, AC/DC, goes on and on. But he is in the middle of this with Greg, and the last chapters have not been written yet in Greg's career, and that's why it's not finished yet. So, but it's going to be a doozy.
Well, we will be looking forward to that. Keep us in the loop, please, so we can just promote the heck out of it, because I'm sure it's going to be amazing.
It is. It's going to be great.
So the life of glamour that you have led, what's one artist you met that you were in awe of? You said, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm standing here with this person or band or,
Ringo Starr. Ringo Starr. Kindest man I have ever met.
Wow.
I mean, just hands down.
Yeah.
Just so loving, so giving. He's exactly who he appears to be. All about peace and love. He loves animals. He cares about his health. He cares about the well-being of others around him. He takes care of everybody, and he laughs through it all. He never really gets down. He just rolls with it, and he's just full of wisdom, and everything that comes out of his mouth is hilarious. And everyone loves being around him. He is definitely the rock star when I think of the most amazing guy I've ever met.
Wow. Yeah, a Beatle. I mean, come on. You just can't, you can't beat being with a Beatle, I'm guessing.
No, you can't. In fact, Greg, he was weaned on the Beatles. And I think his first concert was at Candlestick Park in San Francisco back in the day. And it was a Beatles show. And he said all the crowd was screaming. All the girls were screaming so loud over their small little PA at the time. And he said, I looked around me. It was annoying. And I looked all around me. And I thought, hey, wait a minute. This is what I want to do. I want girls to scream like that over me, So it was very inspirational for him to go into music from going to that Beatles show. And then when Ringo called one day and asked Greg to play in the All-Star band, which he did for 8 years,
right?
He said, every single show, he'd look over at Ringo and he'd be playing, but he'd also be thinking, I can't believe I'm on stage with this guy.
Yeah.
My idol. I can't believe he asked me to be a part of this. He was in awe of Ringo.
And do you remember the first show that Greg did with Ringo, and what was that like?
Yeah, amazing. What a fantastic group of musicians. You had Steve Lukather and Todd Rundgren and Richard Page from Mr. Mister and Greg Bissonnet on drums and Warren Ham on the saxophone. And I mean, it just, it was seamless. And of course, Ringo's drum playing is just amazing to watch. Amazing. He's so in the groove. And when he and Greg play together, Greg Bissonnet, when they play together, it's hair raising. It really gives you chills.
Wow. Really? Wow.
It was really cool. I think the best concert that really sticks out was it was Ringo's birthday, and it was live from the oh my gosh, what's the name of that where they do the Grand Ole Opry? The Ryman in Nashville. And you can catch it on YouTube. Fantastic show.
Wow. Incredible. I mean, there's nothing even really, how can anybody even say anything after that? Because it's just like, you know, again, like you said, pinnacle Ringo Starr, it's just amazing what you have been able to experience with your husband.
Yeah, and we everyone in the entire entourage were friends, and they still are our friends today. I mean, just beautiful people.
That's so awesome. Well, you guys seem like beautiful people. So it can't be. Beautiful people attract beautiful people, right?
Yeah, they do.
Now, you got married in 1980, correct?
Yes.
And the album from Journey, Departure, is released. And that ended up being Greg's goodbye record. So what was that decision like for Greg to say, you know what, I'm done. I'm just not doing this anymore? What type of conversations were had, and what made him really decide to leave that all behind?
Well, of course, this is all going to be in the book, but the footnotes are Greg had been touring what seemed forever to him. Like, the tours were they were very long, and he was tired, and I mean, it was grueling. The touring was grueling, and so he just really wanted to take a break. He wanted to start a family with me, and he didn't feel like having children on the road was such a great idea, and he wanted to switch gears, and he was just tired and just didn't want to do it anymore. He didn't share all of that with me. in the beginning, he just made that decision abruptly, although he says he'd been thinking about it a long time. But it was kind of an abrupt decision as far as I was concerned. And, it was a very tough one. He said he'd been thinking about it for a while. And there were things in life that he was missing out on that he just wanted to do. And it wasn't, I guess, fun anymore. Yeah. So that's what he wanted to do. But he still was far from over, because he kept playing music, and he started a band called The Storm. He did his own solo albums after that. And we did have our first son, Sean, and then Greg started a band called The Storm, and fantastic players. That was a great band. And he actually, one of their songs went to, I think it debuted number 3 on iTunes.
Oh, wow.
When it first came out. And he was with Interscope Records, and then lo and behold, Interscope changed their format, and things just kind of went wonky, and it just kind of fizzled. But the band kept playing, and great musicians, Ron Wixow on drums, Kevin Chalfant on vocals, Josh Ramus on guitar. Anyway, it was fantastic band. And then Greg did the Greg Raleigh band for a while. Then he did a quartet for a while. So, incidentally, I want to insert something. Greg's band, the Greg Raleigh band, they've been asked to do another rock and roll cruise.
What?
And so they did one back in, I think it was 2006, somewhere around there, to the Mexican Riviera. That was a lot of fun. And Eddie Money was on that cruise, and Michael McDonald. But
Eddie.
This one's going to be, and it's called Rock Legends Cruise.
No
and
kidding.
It's leaving out of Miami. It's going to be the Greg Raleigh band. He's putting it back together for this cruise. It's going to be a blast.
So who else is going to be on the cruise with them?
I don't know. I think that might be the only band.
Wow.
Because they do they feature rock bands on every cruise. So I don't know yet. It's very early in the game. But he's putting his Greg Raleigh band together for it in February 2025.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, so again, I don't think that fire ever leaves. Like Greg, of course, Greg did tons of solo albums. I think, were you a part of the one in 85?
Yes, I was there.
And I think you got some credits on that album as well. So Greg's been it seems like he just hasn't stopped. He's been out of the spotlight, in terms of when he was with Journey and everything, but he's always been working in the background. Now, do you ever, maybe think about, what if he never decided to leave Journey, how different things could have been?
Absolutely. We think about that a lot. The music, all the songs that he co-wrote and sang, they're still alive and well today.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know where it would be today. Greg, when Greg quit, he was the one that suggested Jonathan Cain take his place. Jonathan was a fantastic keyboard player, and of course, Jonathan brought the mega ballads to the band, which keeps that catalog going.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. That's a hard thing to imagine, really.
Yeah, because you've been in it now for 40 plus years. So, it's just, it was kind of in the back of my mind. I'm like, because he did leave right before Journey. I mean, Journey was doing great, but right before they catapulted. And, you just wonder, I wonder if he didn't make that decision, where that could have, led to, because a lot of the guys in the band, broken relationships and marriages and everything, because life on the road, I'm sure, is not easy.
No, it isn't. And not every couple survives it.
Right. But you have a lengthy marriage that, you can say, we have been through it. We have weathered everything in this rock and roll history of ours. And, speaking of which, last year, the rumor mill was rampant when it was said that Greg was going to perform at Journey show in Austin, and there was so much speculation. Is Steve Perry going to also show up? Like, there was so much going on. Is he going to do it? Is he not going to do it?
The fans were going nuts.
Yeah, I was one of them.
They were going nuts. And I would have gone nuts too. It would have been fabulous.
I mean, how is that, to get up on that stage again with those guys and, watch your husband in front of Journey fans, who have loved Journey through the changes, through the decades, and you're watching all of it unfold. What was that like for you, Lori? It was fabulous. The chills that I got and everyone around me. We were sitting in the, I think the 9th row middle, and I could hear the entire audience gasp when he walked out on stage. Everybody just gasped because nobody really knew until that moment. Right.
And Neil announced it, and then there he was, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, this is great!" They just they fell apart. They loved it. They just loved it. And we know several people who went to that show who have told us it was the best, best surprise.
That had to be great for you, though. I mean, just to see your husband on that stage again, and in the Journey realm, it just had to be incredible for you.
It was incredible, and it comes right back to Greg. It just he played those songs so much in his life. It was easy for him. He was excited for it. He sounded great. He was so well received, and the Journey fans just loved it. Everyone was happy. Yeah,
and even though it comes back to Greg, Lori, I mean, you are the love of his life. You are his other half. And, just being able to, like I've said, just experience all of these things with him and through him. And, it just has to be, of course, it's different for you than him because he's there. He's been, through all of this. But you being able to watch it and watch your husband smile and watch your husband just be received the way he is, just like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductions as well. That had to be other, of course, proud moments for you to experience.
Very. And it's just been a wild ride. It really has. I've seen a lot, and he's experienced a lot, and there's been many colors in his life, of different songs, different types of songs. He's just been able to do so many things in music. He writes, he sings, he plays, and now he's collaborating with our son Sean, and Sean's a fantastic producer, and they're writing new music all the time. They're moving forward pretty fast, and it's fantastic. Can't wait for the world to hear it.
Well, New Soul, New
Soul.
Great.
Yes, and Flower Song is one, yes.
Great song.
And thank you for playing it yesterday. I was listening to your broadcast.
You're so welcome. We love it. And it's a great song. And, again, just to have the full circle-ness of Greg and Sean together, it's just, it's an incredible, thing for all of us to experience as well. And Lori, you were busy this past, several decades being a wife, a mom to Sean and to Ashley. When did the idea of writing children's books, come into play out of all of this? When did that happen for you?
Okay, so around 2011 is when it began. both kids were getting older and they were moving out and going on their own. And Sean was starting his production career, and Ashley's a hairstylist, and they were doing their own thing. They were growing up on me. Yeah. And so that, when they were young, we read a lot, and they always told me that I should write my own children's books. Oh. They loved the way I read to them. We would make up stories, and it was just a very sweet time together. And so I always had that in the back of my mind that I wanted to do that. But it just kind of came to me, why don't you do something that you want to do, your passions, be an extension, put something together that is an extension of who I was, and which was all about love and happiness and kids, and let's just all have fun, and let me write some really sweet little stories. Didn't know the first thing to do. And I wanted to illustrate it as well. And I was not schooled in art. And so that's why I'm saying anybody can do this, okay?
I can't.
Anybody can do this.
I can't draw a stick. Yes. I can't draw a stick figure, so I give you a lot of credit because I've seen your illustrations.
Me too. I was in that same boat. But it doesn't. But everyone can if you practice. It will come out. And so I just had to say yes to that dream, which I did. And it was frustrating at first. Many wads of paper on the floor, many tears. What am I doing? But finally I drew a mouse. And I thought it was kind of cute. And Greg liked it. And he said, that should be your logo on your book. And so I thought, okay, all right. The children that I'm writing for are very forgiving. So, yeah, I could do that. And then Sean, our son Sean, used to watch South Park. Oh, and God. Little Cartman used to always say, meme, like that to his mother. And so Sean loved that. And all of his friends, he started saying that to me. And all of his friends started calling me Meme.
Oh, how funny.
So Sean says, you should call it Meme's Little World. And so I thought, oh my gosh. So it all started coming together. And then we decided I was going to hide the little mouse that I drew one time in every story. And the child would have to find it. And my biggest fans are 2 to 7.
That's so cute.
And they love it. And so it ended up turning into poetry. I started writing stories, but as I'm writing, it started rhyming. I was like, what in the world? So I decided to do about 8 little poems in each book and illustrate them myself and just throw it out there and see what happened. Well, lo and behold, I saw where I could become a member of the Texas Association of Authors and get in with them on the ground floor. They would help me market my books or give me tips on how to market myself. And I submitted my first book, and I won an award for Best Children's Picture Book.
Wow.
And I was floored, which was the fuel for me to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really inspired me yet even more. And so I wrote another book, 2016, and I submitted that in a book contest, and I won that one as well.
Wow.
For Best Children's Picture Book Pre-K, I think it was, something like that. And then 2019, I won my 3rd award, same thing. And these are all judged by librarians across the state of Texas. So it was quite an honor. And now I'm a member of the Texas Authors Institute Museum, and so I'm in there. So I've had some little milestones, that I'm very proud of. But it's all about making kids happy, because that creates my happiness. And if I'm doing that and I'm having fun along my journey, then that's it. That in turn makes me happy. To make children happy or to inspire other authors,
It is just crazy how it started from just kind of a random idea. Mom, you should write children's books, to, you crying and crumpling up paper, to Greg saying, you should do this, and then winning awards. And it's a lot of work to publish a book. And now you can just enjoy the happiness of seeing kids love your stories.
Yes.
And
it's very rewarding, and it keeps me going. It inspires me to work even harder.
But the cool thing is now Greg can turn around and, look at what you're doing and support you in your dreams, which is just, I think it's so cool. And that's the basis of any relationship, right? But it's just neat how the tables have turned for the both of you. Now you're doing something that, like you said, makes you so happy and makes other people happy. And a really cool thing, I'm noticing a trend now at baby showers. Instead of asking for, a greeting card, which those are far and few between anyway, like they're barely sold anymore. Mom-to-bees are asking for children's books. And I think it's so cool because I feel like book reading in general, because I used to read to my kids every single night as well. I did the character voices, and we just like you, Mom, we had fun with it, and it was just our time together. But I feel like reading books went to the wayside a little, but now this is what people are asking for, children's books, and I think that is so very cool.
Mm-hmm. Which was another reason why I wanted to illustrate myself, because I remember reading to the kids when they were little, and I was so inspired by Shel Silverstein.
Oh, yes.
And A.A. Milne, who did Winnie the Pooh.
Yep.
And I loved Eric Carle for The Hungry Caterpillar. Those are my three top inspirations, but Shel Silverstein, number one in my book. He had so much to say. He was so clever in how he presented his poetry. That is what I wanted to do, and I remember a lot of seeing crazy illustrations that didn't really fit with what was being read. There was a disconnect there. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of fantastic children's literature, don't get me wrong. Right. But there was some that were very disjointed. And I felt like, I just paid $15 for this book that I don't even know what it's saying, Yeah. And I didn't want that to happen. I wanted to blend my illustrations with something sweet that I had that maybe came through the words and touched that child's heart. I wanted all of it to go together so that they really ended up loving that book and wanted to go back to that book, and read it in bed every night. I had hoped that would be the case. And I've gotten terrific feedback. So that's my most important thing that I keep in mind as I'm creating.
And your stories are sweet. And I think that's what, all kids need is some sweetness in their lives. And you're definitely providing that to them. Now, when you visit the schools and you read to the kids or wherever you go to read your stories, what is one of the most touching stories a child has ever said to you after you've read to them?
Well, this is my favorite story. I wanted to share with you. So my first year at the Texas Book Festival, largest in Texas, here in Austin in front of the Capitol. It's huge. I had a booth. I had my first book. I'm trying to sell my first book, just sitting there, and a teacher came by, and it caught her eye, and she stood there for a while, and just quietly looking through it. And she looked up at me, and she said, "I love this. This is fantastic." And she said, I definitely want to buy a few books, but she said, I own a preschool. I've just started a preschool. Would you be interested in coming and reading to several of my classes? I said, absolutely. I would love to do that. So she had me come for her fall festival, which she's been doing every year since then. And when she begins her classes in the fall, the first thing they do is they write their own stories, their own little biographies. It's adorable. And then they invite me in when they're completed, and we share. So I read to them as a class, and then they individually come up and read their stories to me. Wow. It's so sweet. But the sweetest thing is they're all sitting around when I'm in a chair reading to them, and they're back about, I don't know, maybe about 5-6 feet from me is where they start. They're very polite, hands in their laps, you know. By the time I get to about the third story, they are up at my knees. They're touching the book. They're touching my kneecap. You know, they're all around me like puppies. And they just, I don't know, it brings tears to my eyes every time. So that's my favorite story. That's where it's at. I know I'm touching their hearts. And if I can do that, man, oh man, I'm on the right track, and it's part of who I am. It in turn feeds, it's my evolution, you know, my love of doing it, of spreading my joy to these children, and then having them just absorb it and tell me how great my little books are, and how they love playing with the little finger puppet mouse named Meme. They have one in their classroom that sits up on their chalkboard all the time, and they kind of pass it around. But and then when they're reading their stories to me, it still brings tears to my eyes thinking about it. They show me their family and their pets and their favorite colors and their toys, and it's so important to them. These are things that they'll never forget, you know, and hopefully I've inspired them to maybe write their own book someday. You know, and I think that this teacher has just been such a beautiful person in my life. She believes in what I do. I love her preschool. It's like the Disneyland of preschools. I want to go to school there.
That is so funny.
It's such a beautiful experience. It's so much fun.
Well, clearly your path crossed with someone else who was meant to be in your life, because now, you know, you can just totally have the kids experience what you love and your passion and share your joy with everybody. And Lorie, you know, we just thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know you're really busy, for, you know, just being here and letting us into your very personal life for just a little bit. Now, everybody can get her books at Rolie-author.com. I have to tell you, I just ordered Meme's Little World for our almost newborn granddaughter. It will be our first grandchild, and I personally cannot wait to read it to her and, you know, pull out some of the classics I have tucked away in my attic. And also some, you know, everybody can go to your YouTube channel as well at Lorie Raleigh Memes World and just watch some of your really sweet videos about meme. Rolie-author.com. Everyone head there, grab your copy of these very super sweet books. And again, Lorie, we thank you for being here today.
It's been a pleasure, Kiki. Thank you for having me so much. And I just want to tell everybody, if you have a dream, and, you know, find your gift and follow your passion and enjoy your journey.